Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Retro and Success Thursday. This week we have with us David Wallace. Hi David, welcome back.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here and happy to be able to continue talking with you.
And share with the world the experiences that you've gone through. There's a lot of wealth in sharing those experiences, as the more than 300 hours of content well illustrate in this podcast. All right, so let's dive into that experience, David. And let's start first by your favorite retrospective format. What is it and why do you like it so much?
All right, so retrospectives are one of my favorite things in Agile, just being able to look back and learn from our experiences. And when I've worked with teams, one of the things I've found is that having a consistent element, but changing up the format a little bit is the most effective way to do it. So you've got the standard, what went well, what could have gone better, and what do you want to do differently in the future kind of aspect. I've always tried to adapt that to different themes. And the theme that I've always enjoyed the most, or the way of presenting it, is drawing a target. So whether I'm doing it in person or doing it virtually now, as my company has gone fully remote for the current times, is putting a target, and as we're doing the retro, having the team on sticky notes put the things that they felt went well, didn't go well, all of those on the target, where the closer the sticky note is to the bullseye, the better they're doing with it. So if they think they're doing it as well as it could be done, it goes right on the bullseye. If they think they're completely off base, they can even put it outside of the target. And then it can go anywhere in between in that range. And then typically we'll start on the outside and just kind of spiral our way through the target all the way until we get to the middle and talk through the different sticky notes and what happened. And one of the interesting things that comes out of that, sometimes you'll have someone put a sticky note that's almost on the target or on the bullseye, another one that's almost completely off, and it's the exact same sticky note. And so you see that they're looking at it two completely different ways. And just the visualization of that target really has helped when I've used that format for people to kind of see where they are, because you can see that kind of scatter pattern of how many things are closer to the middle or how many things are further out. And it's just a great visualization for that. And then being able from that conversation to be able to come up with actions that they want to take to change that pattern. And especially if you do that periodically, then you can capture where those patterns are and hopefully start seeing the sticky notes moving closer to the middle.
Or at least some of them, right?
Yeah, at least some of them. Yeah, right. Because there's always things that are going to be on that outside part.
One of the things I like about this example that you just described for us is the fact that it helps us to visualize multiple types of information at the same time. And especially because it helps us to visualize. There's a lot of formats that are focused on the verbalization of things like, problems, achievements, if we want to thank someone, appreciations. But when we make it visible, like, could be a target, could be, I don't know, like the sailboat example or whatever, the fact that we visualize it creates a completely different depth in the discussion. And like you just so well illustrated, right? If somebody puts a Post-it close to the center, somebody else puts a Post-it outside the target, and they're the same thing, then there's something you need to talk about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great for spurring those kind of conversations where if you just have a column of what went well, what went bad, and you see the same things show up on both, you need to talk about it, but just the visualization of it just seems to be much more powerful when you have that whole range for them to look at.
Absolutely. And it helps you see the patterns over time as well, as you illustrated.
Yeah.
All right. So now we turn our attention to the reason why we run these retrospectives, which is, of course, to succeed in our role as Scrum Master. So David, what does success mean for you in your role as a Scrum Master?
So for me, success is making myself obsolete. If the team doesn't need me anymore, then I've succeeded. To go a little bit further into that they're demonstrating an agile mindset. They're demonstrating team safety, psychological safety. They're open to challenging each other and having real discussions about things. They have an experimental mindset. So they look at things and say, hey, let's try some experiments to figure out the best way to approach this. And then I would say also, if they've embraced a consent-based decision making versus a consensus decision making. So where they can say, okay, this is good enough for now, safe enough to try, let's do that, and then see how it works out. And then we'll come back and make another decision based off of the results.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of these are aspects of a well-functioning team, but they are also quite conceptual, abstract. So let's dive into those. So when you say they are demonstrating an agile mindset, psychological safety, open to challenge each other, and so on, what does that mean in practice? Like, how do their daily meetings change? How do their retrospective change? What happens that demonstrates to you that those things are in place?
Absolutely. So one great example would be I had a team that I was working with that was doing retros. They would do their retros every 2 weeks at the end of the sprint. And they still had the same problems all the time. They were still facing it. I was like, okay, why is this team not growing? Why are they not getting better? They're still struggling with all of the same things. And this was fairly early in my career. And I realized they don't ever take action items out of their retrospectives. There's nothing that they're doing to apply what they're talking about to the next sprint. So we started focusing on having action items. Like I would just, as they were talking through the retro, I would jot down ideas on the board. And at the end, I was like, okay, as you were talking, here are the things I heard you mentioning, like either aren't going well or sometimes are going really well. Like, how can we apply that to this next sprint to make our work better? And so we would throw out some ideas and we'd end up adopting one or two as an official experiment to try for the next 2 to 3 sprints, and letting the retros actually drive the change. Within, I'd say 3 or 4 months, that team was acting in a completely different way. They had tried things that had failed, they had tried things that succeeded, but they had embraced that change mindset of being willing to learn and actually apply that to the future. They started having much more real conversations because they realized that when they challenged each other, then they actually got to a better result than just hearing someone say something they didn't agree with and going, we're just going to keep doing things the same way anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Instead, they realized that if they spoke up and said, wait, I'm not sure that is the right way, that they could end up driving to a better solution. So that was a huge learning for me in that.
And also the fact that you were, like in this particular example, you were looking at what is the next practical thing that I can use in order to help them to take action items out of the retrospective. Because one thing is to have the idea that the team has the continuous improvement mindset. That's all good and well. But what does that mean in practice, right? And this example that you shared is a great example of just how a simple thing, like listing on the board what they said they wanted to improve, and then asking them, so which one should we try this sprint? And, what could we actually do? And who will do it? And how do we track it? And right? So kind of mirroring what that is, what the continuous improvement mindset is to the team, helps them to understand what's their job, what's their role in getting to that continuous mindset improvement.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, for the first several of those, I was driving that. By the end, I'd say 6 months later, I barely even spoke during retrospectives. They were driving the entire thing. They were calling out their own action items that could turn into experiments. And really, they had taken ownership of the entire process. So yeah, I definitely counted that one as a huge success because they went from just going through the motions to actually owning their own process.
That's a great way to define success. Thank you for sharing that, David.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Part of a successful Scrum Master job is to help the product owner. Tomorrow we explore that critical role in Scrum, the product owner role. Tune in to learn about the product owner anti-patterns, what you can do to help the product owner, and a real-life example of what a great product owner is and what made it so. Tomorrow on our Friday Product Owner episode. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.